Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve, Jerry, Alan, and today we have a longtime NHL coach, Tom Renney. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure, Elena. Thanks for having me.
Show.
Well, Tom, right now there are so many stories breaking. I just want to know what you make of the Maple Leafs situation, whether you are in the group like my buddy Steve Simmons, who thinks the recent hirings is a disaster. What do you think about what's going on there?
Well, I know one thing, Stan, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but 1996, I think, I interviewed for the Maple Leafs job with Cliff Fletcher. And I also had Vancouver and Phoenix going on at the same time. And my parents were still alive, living in British Columbia. Pat Quinn was in Vancouver, Cliff in Toronto, and I couldn't have gotten two better people to talk to about the game, but I decided not to go to Toronto. And within about the same time frame, Mike Murphy and myself were, I had almost identical records, and we were both fired within the next year. It's a tough place to work. It's a very, very tough place to work. It's very close scrutiny. It doesn't matter what the sport is, for example. But I guess like I don't want to consider myself a politician at all, but I guess time will tell. I know that we're very much into analytics and data and gathering as much information as we possibly can. And I like that, as long as the menu is not so long that it gets so convoluted we don't even know what we're doing. So I'm hoping that what they have in place will work. I have all kinds of times for Matt Sundin. Stan, Alan, you'll remember when he was in New York and we were actually talking potentially about him coming to New York as a free agent at one point in time. And so I have all kinds of time for Matt Sundin. I think he's a wonderful human being. I think he brings a face to the organization. I do not know the depth of his competency in those terms, but from a public perspective point of view, I think it's a great hire. I don't know Chaka at all. I've never met him. I know how Steve feels about this, and I know Steve well enough to know that he calls it like he sees it. And that's one man's opinion, and I don't think he's alone.
Can we go back to your junior career in Kamloops? You had so much success as a junior coach, and then you went to the national team. Did you play the game when you were a kid? Like you obviously had to play. How far did you make it playing?
I played junior hockey in my hometown of Cranbrook, and then went to Medicine Hat and ultimately to Vernon. And I never stayed in any one place because I thought that I'd have to go back to Cranbrook, get my education, go to school. So I did play some junior. I did go attend the University of North Dakota, Jerry, but I never played. I was the stopper, and I think you know what that means. I stopped the defenseman from bumping into the forwards on the bench. And so I didn't play a lot there, but I had enough experience as a player to, I think know what I was talking about. My wife and my in-laws are the Gare family from Nelson. And so Glenna's father, Ernie, had a big impact on me for what he had done with young players and people growing up in the game. And I can recall my minor hockey banquet, Jerry, in Cranbrook, BC. I was 12 years old, and Father David Bauer came to speak at our minor hockey banquet. And at that time, he was with the Canadian national men's team, and trying to participate in the World Championships and the Olympics, et cetera. And he spoke at our banquet, and I was hooked right then and there. And I was 12 years old. I still was pursuing my playing career, but I knew at some point in time I wanted to coach, and I wanted to coach Canada's national team and Canada's Olympic team. So Kamloops came available to me through a good friend, Ken Hitchcock, who you know, Jerry. And he said he was leaving to go to, I think it was either Syracuse or Kalamazoo or Philadelphia. And he said, I wonder if you're interested in taking my job here at Kamloops. I said, yeah. I am. So I went to Kamloops, and thank goodness for a great management team and Bob Brown. I just really had success. And then, of course, I had people like Scott Niedermayer, Daryl Sador, Corey Hirsch, people that could play. And I had a great assistant coach in Don Hay himself, who had played and coached quite a bit in the National Hockey League. And the rest is sort of history. After the Memorial Cup win, I was sequestered by Hockey Canada to come and coach the men's national team, and away you go.
Scott Niedermayer was with us for a long time in New Jersey. A very good friend of mine, just because he's, he'd been there so long, just a great guy. When you had him, how good did you think he was going to be as a big leaguer?
I thought he was going to be an outstanding player. I did not know at that point in time Stan Hall of Fame career or anything like that, but I knew how good he was. He's from Cranbrook, and he and his brother Rob, and so I watched them play as little people, and they were wonderful skaters, taught how to skate by their mother, and Carol, and a great teacher of that, of course. But I knew that he was going to be a great player. What cemented that for me was when we got both he and Daryl Sador back on December 1st of 1992 from the National Hockey League, New Jersey and LA specifically, and we were on our way. I thought for sure we were Memorial Cup contenders, and we were, I think, rated first overall the entire year, which scared the heck out of me. And then when Daryl and Scotty showed up, I thought, okay, we're good to go. And then coaching against him, coached him in the World Championships, coached him in the World Junior, outside of Kamloops. You marvel at that. And the move that he made that looked so much like coffee, end to end, and it was just, you just knew the man he had greatness written all over him. And Stan, you're right, a terrific human being, just a wonderful guy, and still working a little bit with Anaheim now.
I'm asking you this question because it's related to a negative about Scotty, negative in quotes, really. But what was it? What as a coach, what did you criticize him for? What was his flaw?
This is good. This is a good question, Stan. It just came too easy for him. He would come out and practice, and he would be doing different, going through drills, half speed, which was pretty much full speed for everybody else. Never disinterested, but kind of just going through the motions. And I told him one time, I said, Scotty, why don't you go ride the bike for a while? Because we're just, we're out here wasting time. That was it. Honestly, it was just so easy for him to do anything. I played him at forward a few times, and he racked up points there just to change it up for him, to keep it interesting.
There's a story in Frank Boucher's great book, When the Rangers Were Young, that's related to Niedermayer. It's a great story because they had a great line. It was called the bread line. Alex Shibicki with the Colville brothers, Mac and Neil. And in the book, Frank tells how Shibicki would be tearing down the right side, and the guys on the bench would be yelling, "Shoot the puck, Shibicki! Shoot the puck, Shibicki!" And then when he didn't, they say, "Oh shit, Shibicki!" So here's the relation to Scotty Niedermayer.
Yes.
Me and my Larry Gaines, I worked with on the TV thing for years, and we both felt the same way about maybe two other guys on the crew. Scotty Niedermayer would take the puck and he'd start coming up ice. He could do anything he want with the puck, and then he'd get to the opposition blue line, and we're waiting for him to make the great play. And when he gets over the blue line, it's like he's trying to think about pitching a tent there. And shoot the puck, Scotty, for crying out loud. I don't know how many more points he would have gotten. I don't know what he liked about that little spot over the opposition blue line. Maybe he thought there was some gold there underneath the ice.
Stan, a great story about Scott. This is the Memorial Cup in Seattle, and we're playing Teddy Nolan's team, and a great team from the Sioux. Sault Ste. Marie, that is, Elena. And there's 14 seconds, about 20 seconds to go in the game, and one of our forwards goes in to shoot the puck or whatever, falls down, hits the boards. The opposition player spears him in the stomach, and so he comes off the ice and he's crawling off the ice. And meantime, there's a 3-on-2 the other way, and actually it was a 3-on-1, and Scott's the only defenseman back, and he poke checks the player with the puck, gets the puck. Those three guys are going one way. He looks up at the clock, skates just far enough to get over the blue line, just kind of takes a couple of strides over the blue line, hits the guy that I put on the ice to replace the person coming off the ice, tape to tape, went in and scored. 14 seconds to go, and we won the Memorial Cup. How many people would have the confidence to just play it 3-on-1 like it's like a 1-on-1, take the puck, look up at the clock, I better get over the blue line so it's not a 2-line pass, and he feathers it in there and we score.
He felt constrained. I don't know whether he ever articulated it, because Lou Lamoriello, who I love and who is one of the great people in hockey, because he taught me a little expression, do what's right and do it now. My father was do what's right and or don't do it at all. But Lou wanted defense uppermost, and Lou was, of course, the emperor. And the coaches, Jacques Lemaire, everybody said he was the greatest coach they ever had, and Jacques was more disciplined in terms of defense. And I think that Nieder kind of felt a little bit tied down. But I have to send him a note and say, was there gold under the ice at the blue line that you or was that land for sale that you were studying? What the hell were you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. Maybe that's one of the reasons he came back in December to play some junior hockey and just have some fun and basically do whatever he wanted to do, no matter who the coach was.
One last story, because we loved him. How can you not love this guy?
Yeah.
So when he was in his prime, I was a musician and I knew a lot of songs, and I found out that there was a tune that I felt was perfect. It was perfect. It was a Stan Kenton tune called Artistry and Rhythm. Now, what better thing for Nieder? He was an artist and he was in rhythm. So I bought the record down and I gave it to him, and he gave a look at it. And I think when he looked at it, he saw that spot on the blue line.
That was a tip for him. That's great.
Tremendous.
Tom, Rangers fans once created a Ranger line generator because of all the line changes. Looking back, what was the thinking process behind constantly shuffling the lines?
Well, I'd watched probably 40 years of hockey prior to that and saw that everybody did it. So, you know what, Elena, you know the sport. There's certain people that are going, certain guys that aren't quite yet. People like Scotty and Keenan, they just knew who had it going that night. And it's, I'd love to tell you there's a science behind it. It's not. It's as much intuition or a gut feel as anything. I think, if I remember right, Peter Prucha was a pretty popular player in New York. And Peter seemed to be the one that always kind of bounced around. But that's because he worked so hard. And he had opportunities where he scored a lot and others where he didn't quite. But he always trusted him no matter who he was with to get the job done and play hard. That's one of those things for sure. And I think it's a bit of a parody, if I'm not mistaken. But I think every coach does that, Elena, to a point. You might not mess around too much with your defense pairs, but you have an opportunity to have that feeling. Who's going, who isn't. You look at synergies between two people and who's the third one that might fit in and work best with that, or two that aren't going and who can kind of jumpstart them. So there's all kinds of reasons for those line changes. I don't want to tell you it was a crapshoot. It was based on at least observation, if not back then analytics. But there was enough to know who was going and who wasn't. But quite honestly, it's just trying to get that blend of who's going, who isn't, who can utilize this player to elevate their line, who can we help play with this player to elevate that person's game. And I've always been somewhat bothered by lines 1 through 4 and matchups and all those types of things. And I never really liked matching if I could ever help it. But when you're coaching the Canadian Olympic team and you're going against the next facsimile of the green line and it's 6-0, 10 minutes into a game, you start to kind of move your people around a little bit. So I think that's the ultimate genesis for me of, changing line combinations and moving people around a little bit to find the right blend.
As a Ranger coach, who was your favorite player, favorite Ranger while you were coaching, and your least favorite?
Well, I love all my players. I hope that doesn't come across as, anything other than what I intend it to be. I just have a lot of time for the players. And that's for me, I had a clear conscience at night. I do believe that I think at least that players, when they're respected, have a tendency to reciprocate that. So I always tried to do that. I think the one that probably, there's too many to name, but I really enjoyed Henrik. I really enjoyed Jaromir. Shanny was great. I loved the Ryan Hallwigs, the blue collar guys for sure. The Jed Ortmeyers. I love those guys. I loved Jason Strudwick. I loved Merritt Malik. There aren't many, to be honest with you, Stan. I'm trying to think of someone. I don't know if I dislike them or if they just got me mad more often than the others. I can't really tell you who that was. I had a great DP8 appreciation for Colton Orr, and and what he brought to our lineup and what he was able to do for guys. And I was proud of him because when he came to us, he was maybe 1 minute and 28 minutes a night time on ice in Boston. And I told him, I said, Colton, listen, I'm not going to tell you to fight. You know that better than I do. You know when, where, and how, if that's something that's necessary. I'm never going to tell you to fight, but I am going to help you be a hockey player. And if you remember back, guys, Colton was out against Sidney Crosby just about every time we played them in the Garden. And Colton had to be a hockey player to do that. And and I think we got his minutes up to 8 or 9 minutes a night, which I know he appreciated, and I'm proud of that because I followed through on what I hoped I was going to be able to do for him. I don't know. I don't know, Stan. There's only one player that I can remember that I kind of disliked because he didn't give us everything he could have. And I'll just say he was in Edmonton and shall remain nameless.
I have a follow-up Ranger question, Tom. I know we've talked about this. 2005-06, your favorite year, 100 points. Sports Illustrated picks the Rangers last, coming out of the lockout. Team's doing so many special things. Do you have a favorite moment, favorite game, favorite something of that 100-point season?
Well, again, Al, it's a bad answer, but that as a collective, that group was so much fun, and they just loved coming to the rink. They loved each other. I didn't have a problem if you were speaking any language, do what makes you comfortable, but when we're together, we're gonna speak English and do our thing. But I had no problem. We had Finns, we had Russians, we had Czechs, we had Slovaks, we had the whole 9 yards, and it was great. People felt respected and required and relevant. I would tell you what the fans did at the end of the year after the playoffs were done. I love the stick raising, the stick salute. Just enormous. I love Sweet Caroline. Beautiful, love it. Still have fond memories. But I'll tell you that when the fans stood up and gave a team a standing ovation after losing 4 straight, and they gave that team a standing ovation. I was so proud of that team, and very, very proud to be coaching the Rangers in front of a group of people like that. That was a major highlight for me personally.
What is your coaching philosophy? In my working life, I've been a boss a few times, and my philosophy was always everybody has a button to push. My job to find that button and push it. And I imagine coaching's much the same way. But are you in the mode of my way or the highway, or do you kind of adjust yourself to your team?
I try to be consistent, Jerry, as you would know all about that. I certainly try to be consistent in who and what I am, and you know, as much as we like to think so, you don't treat everybody the same. You treat them well, you respect them, you know, and you make sure that that's front and center. Beyond that, to your button point, you've got to know what that is, you know, for sure. But you've got to be sincere. You've got to be consistent. You've got to make sure that there's a level of accountability and responsibility within your group, to the point where, you know, if someone needs to hear it, you're not selective as to who it is. It doesn't have to be the fourth line guy. It can be Jaromir Jagr, you know, for example. And I think I'm good with that. But at the same time, I've never, ever believed in humiliating a player into playing better, you know, or being condescending behind the bench and, you know, yelling at a group on the ice so that these 15 guys are sitting here thinking, geez, what's he saying when I go out there? I've never been that kind of coach. I think I'm collaborative. You know, I think I'm a bit of a hybrid, and I don't know if I'm a transformational coach, as the cliche would say nowadays. But I do know that in Vancouver, I had some pretty talented people tell me that I was ahead of my time, and so that might suggest that maybe too collaborative, too early. But I can tell you the one thing for sure is that I was consistent in my care for the players.
You want to come back as a coach in the NHL?
I'm 71, Stan.
So what? I'm 94. Yeah, I want to coach too.
I knew you were going to say that, but I haven't been 94 yet, so I'm not sure. You know what, Stan? Strange as it might sound, I would, and I would come back as a president. I'd come back as a general manager, and I would come back. That's how good I feel. But my time is done, and it's somebody else's turn, and I'll just support.
Do you have an agent?
I've never had an agent.
Well, get one.
You're the man,
There
Stan.
got to be agents who are out of work. You know, I mean, you'll help the Canadian economy.
I was going to say, I'll help them stay out of work.
I got to tell you, it's about time. I became a Maple Leaf fan in 1942 at the age of 12, and I became more and more intense when it came to 46, 47, and we won the Stanley Cup against all odds. I went berserk. We won it again in 48 with Max Bentley, maybe the greatest team of all time. I don't care what anybody in Edmonton, the little village of Edmonton, thinks. And then in 48, 49, the team was under 500. You listening? Under 500, and we won the cup. First team never win 3 cups in a row. So, and my intensity as a Leaf fan continued until after the 51 playoffs, when my hero, Bill Barilko, disappeared. But the Maple Leafs, of course, I went to work for the Rangers in publicity in 54, 55, but the love for the Leafs never left me. And then it come Punch Himlock, another great era, 3 cups in a row, and then they won the last cup in 47. To see what's happened to this team that I loved so dearly is not fun. It's beyond, you know, the Leafs were a good joke. They're no joke anymore. Yeah. And they're the most richest team in the entire league. Leafs first, then come the Rangers. And Vancouver's another rich team. Why are these rich teams failures? Why?
Well, I think what's happened is that there are teams that have now recognized how much talent is out there. It's young talent, young legs. I do believe that, as much as we'd like to think so, it's not an exact science, but scouting is the lifeline of your organization. And I think that, you have to really make sure that your scouting staff is as strong as it possibly can be. You know what you want to put on the ice. You know what and you do have to do this with fans in mind, quite honestly. You've got to give the fans something that they can be proud of. And it takes winning, and that's the bottom line. But I think the teams that are doing well now have drafted well. They've not been afraid to integrate good young talent into their lineup. They've allowed them the chance to kind of morph into what they are, take the good with the bad, but ultimately flourish. And I think sometimes we get into this recycle mode, that can be counterproductive, obviously. I think the teams that have the courage to put a young team on the ice is in the long run, and it is a long game for sure. And I think if you want to be a program of integrity, you have to think long-term. You have to think long-term and identify with that entire process, notwithstanding the fact, and I think you'll all remember this, we were a young team in Edmonton when I was there. And, that we were what we were. We'd had first-round picks, consecutive years in a row, and we weren't quite there yet. And so youth with a blend of experience that can still play is important, and making a decision on the older player that it's time. We need to move you out of the way and bring in and infuse the organization with young legs, young thinking, certainly that bridge athlete that'll help the young players morph into what we all want them to be at the end of the day. And I do believe that every team needs to make sure that they have this strategic plan on what they want their team to look like, how they're going to play. When I was in New York, when I was director of player personnel, I had all of our scouts take 2 teams over the last 8 Stanley Cup finals. And what they had to do was identify who the general manager was and his sort of his approach to the game, his mentality of how to build a team, who the coach was or coaches were and how they coached, what the rosters looked like and how they were put together through free agency, through drafting, through trading, whatever the case may be. And so those 8, when you think about it, there's 16 teams. Each scout had 2 teams. And then we sat down, and back in the day on a whiteboard, we wrote down what made the New Jersey's great, New Jersey Devils great, what made the Colorado Avalanche great. And we just went through everything we possibly could. And then ultimately what we did is we built a Ranger. We built the Ranger player. And then we kind of tried to scout as such. And, I'm not going to tell you that's why we made the playoffs, after 7 years out, but it just seemed to give the scouts some purpose. You know what I mean? And it really helped them with some definition, and really take it seriously and kind of be, in a position where they had to kind of stand up and defend their work, which was a really good exercise and helped me a lot because I was new here. I was new to this. And so I got to learn how they thought. I got to learn how teams really and truly outside of being a fan, went to the Stanley Cup finals. And we built a Ranger, and that's when we started our development programs, that we had done in Calgary at the University of Calgary. And first one was 5 weeks long, second one was 4 weeks long, and then the third one, the NHLPA weighed in and said, you can't do that anymore. We'll give you 1 week, because we were ready to play.
Were there any specific Rangers drafted out of that model that you guys developed? Anybody that emerged special?
Yeah, they were. Well, Henrik was just before it, but he came to the development camps, and then we had, all of them. I can't remember who we drafted. Ryan Hallwig was just a superstar in Medicine Hat, heart and soul, pound for pound player. Could play with anybody and played any way you wanted to. He was certainly one of them. Blair Betts, Jed Ortmeyer. It's a while ago now, Al. I wish I could rattle off 20 names for you. I can't off the top of my head, but that was the plan for sure. And keep in mind, it wasn't just those who we drafted, but it also allowed us, as much as the draft is your lifeline, it also allowed us to look at the right free agents, that would ultimately be a Ranger, and what it took to represent that city. And, and not long after I started, we had 9/11, and when I took over coaching, I was very clear to our guys, listen, as you alluded to, we were picked to finish 30th, by Sports Illustrated, and 28th maybe was our best number of all of that. But what we did for sure was we made a real conscious effort to bring in free agents that would not just play, but lead and play. And one in particular, as you all well know, in Jaromir, but Shanny came in. These are people that could still play, that brought those kids along, and we brought them in as Rangers. We brought them in to be Rangers, and even Avery, Sean came in to be a Ranger, and you know what? He did his job. We played, our hearts out, and came up a little bit short, but as we all know, it's easier to change one than everybody else, and I'm okay with that.
Was Avery hard to coach?
No.
I was asking the same thing.
I'll tell you why. First of all, I respected his ability to play. I respected that he was an individual that had certain likes and dislikes. We'd have great conversations, about things that had little to do with hockey. And same with Jaromir. I just love those conversations with those guys. But I can tell you how important your leadership group is within any team. And that includes even, in the corporate world, whatever the case may be. If you've got those 4 or 5 guys, that know where the hot spots are, and, you might just give them a nod or give them one of these, they know. And Shanny was great with Avery. Shawnee was great with Avery. He was great with Brandon Dubinsky. You just knew that the message was getting to them loud and clear. And, and I really tried hard not to overcoach. I like every once in a while, you got to show your passion too from behind the bench. And Aves was built for that. And, he brought personality to our team as well.
He thinks you're his favorite coach. I asked him.
Oh,
No, I'm not kidding. He loved you. He loved you as a coach. And
as I told you earlier,
I think the guy is fabulous. Funny guy, great head. He's an actor now. He writes books.
Yeah, I agree.
How about Henrik? He was still early in his NHL career with you, right? Did you immediately realize he was going to become special?
I did, Elena. And what was good for me was I mentioned the development camps that we had in Calgary, and Henrik came to our first one. And he was still cutting his teeth, really, and hadn't cracked the lineup yet. And this was in the off season, obviously. And I saw this guy move from side to side. I saw his level of compete. I saw the level of concentration on the next shot. Whether it was in practice and there was 15 shots coming to one after the other, he was so dialed into each shot. And then what made the difference for me, Elena, was Benoit Allaire. And very early in me getting to know Benoit, and at training camp, he said, "Tom, this is going to be the guy." And Kevin Weeks was there, and I had every intention of Weeksy starting the season for us, and so that's the way it worked. Kevin hurt his ankle, and Benoit he said, "Tom, this is it." And Henrik wrote the rest. And a good man, like another great conversation. We talked about stuff that maybe it didn't have anything to do with hockey directly, but indirectly it did. About leadership and respect, and what do you love most in your life outside of hockey, and how is your family, and where are you from, and talk about that. And then with my international experience, I'd been to a lot of these places where these guys were from, and I think it really helped, bridge any kind of relationship.
Did it bother you that Henrik played so deep in his net?
Yes, until Ben told me don't worry about it. Is it okay? But you know what? Too, what's really interesting here, Jerry, is Henrik was our guy, and Benoit and I would sit down and we would look at the schedule, and he would say, okay, Henrik should play here, here, not here, on the road against a team that we might have some trouble against. He won't play there, and he'll play here and not here, and then he'll play here, here, and here, and he would plot out the entire month of games that he thought Henrik should play and those that he shouldn't. A, for rest, obviously, and be able to kind of rehabilitate and re-energize. But also because from the psyche of a goaltender, making sure that he was in a position to have success every time he stepped in the net. And, it was weeks he was a backup. Mike Dunham was a backup. We had some really good goaltending tandems there as well. Henrik he was great. He was great. That's why I have a tough time, Stan, when you ask me about who did I dislike, because I don't think I disliked. I really don't. I really
Well,
don't.
then pick a referee. Let's get it over with. Got to be a referee.
Well, you know what? This is funny. I don't have a referee that I didn't like, although I yelled at them once in a while. But they told me, there was probably half a dozen of them that would come up to me and say, "Tom, thanks for the way you treat us." He said, "You get a lot of respect from the referees, and we think you're top shelf." And that was pretty good compliment, because you don't hear that kind of stuff, and you do try to respect them because you want to get the call.
Well, I didn't know you from Alfred E. Newman, and I want you to guess. I'm giving you 5 seconds to guess which guy in the world told me about Tom Renney that this guy is going to be terrific. I'm giving you 5 seconds. You give up? It was Chico Resch.
Oh, yeah, Chico. Coached against him when he was in Tri-Cities. Yeah, great guy.
He told me he loved you, and he said, watch this guy. You're going to love him, and he's going to be a success.
Well, I can tell you what, the feeling's mutual. What a great human. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can attest to that too, because in the 2014 final, I sought out the handful of Rangers that had been part of your teams: Henrik, Mark Stahl, Dominic Moore.
Yeah.
To a man, they raved. They just said how important it was to have a coach like you early in their career, early in their Ranger career, what you instilled in them, and a smile. As soon as I would walk over to Mark Stahl, he reminded me that you visited his home when he was.
Yeah.
That kind of personal interaction impacted them, and here they are playing for the Cup, but they're thinking of their first coach a lot.
Fantastic.
Great.
It's like, you know what, Alan? It's you're a proud father, and as much as many of them are closer to my age and further away from it, but just great humans, good people. I don't know any other way, and I think I'm looking at 3 people that or 4 people that are similar. You just don't know any other way than to be yourself, respect people, and you reap what you sow at the end of the day. And good people. Those are great names, Al. These are just fantastic people. Chico was good. He was great.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, we got to get serious now.
Okay.
You owe something to the hockey world, and stop smiling. I'm being serious.
Okay.
So what you owe to the hockey world now is a book. And Alan Crater is right there to be your ghostwriter, because he did a sensational book with Kenny Morrow.
He did.
Who, by the way, belongs into the Hall of Fame.
Amongst others on this call.
So you got to talk to this guy, Crater. You can make a contribution by telling the world all about what your wisdom of hockey. I think the title is The Wisdom of Hockey by Tom Renney. Don't let him off the hook, Alan.
I won't. We've talked a bit about this concept.
Alan, I don't know what to say to that.
I'm going to do it. What's the big deal? He's a nice guy. Crater won't hurt you.
And am I on the line, Alan? If I tell
That's all good.
What we're doing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There you go.
We're already working on it.
I feel I must remind you guys that I wrote a book too.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, get him to do it.
I'm in
he lives in the
Florida,
same
so, you know, and
province, for crying out loud.
and Tom, I swear to God, I am a much gooder writer than Alan is. So
I like that.
so keep that in mind, okay?
I
You know,
will.
I don't care how many Pulitzer Prizes he's won. I can write.
Well, you can
that's
have two
priceless.
writers. You can have one on American side and one on Canadian
Right.
side.
There you
But
go.
the thing that Alan has over this guy from BC, Alan is from Brooklyn, and he speaks two languages, English and Brooklyn.
True.
That's what I miss most about New York. I love it. When people say, "Where's your favorite place to coach?" and all I ever wanted to do was coach in the Olympic Games. It could have been in Timbuktu. I don't care. That's all I ever wanted to do. But that's why, you end up with the career you do, because you want so badly to do this, and when you reach that, that's just part of the process. That's not it. It is what it took to get there. And I'll tell you, I love New York. Glenda loved New York. We had such a great time there. And Stan, Alan, I'll never forget those interviews. I'll never forget those chats. I will. Every time I think of you guys, I have a smile on my face, and I don't know, those jokes were those were before games, Stan.
Well, what did it do? Did it help you or hurt you?
No, it was fantastic. Right in my wheelhouse. It was great. I loved it.
I only did it with one other coach. Can you guess who it is?
In one of the three teams?
It's taking too long.
Torts.
Tortorella.
I was going to say Torts. I was going
Tortorella.
to say that, and then I thought, oh.
Yeah.
Torts would he would like that. He would like that.
He was unbelievable. I would do it after he interviewed. Sam Rosen would interview him on tape about the game, and then I was standing there. And if he liked the joke, he would say, Stan, you are crazy.
Yeah.
And if he didn't like the joke, then what?
Crazier.
Speaking of torts, I watched the game yesterday and Mitch Marner scored a hat trick. He was pretty invisible in the playoffs when he played for the Leafs. Do you think torts brings out the best in Marner?
I do. I think, I think Torts is a heck of a coach. And you know what? You want to talk about good human beings? Torts is a great guy, a great guy. We share texts every once in a while and stay in touch. And this is a guy that replaced me there. But that doesn't matter. That's inconsequential. The bottom line is that we're in the same thing, doing the same thing at the same time. And he's a great guy. But I do believe he's got that, if you want to win a cup and get close to winning a cup, the way he coaches will get you there. But you have to have some pieces. There's no question. You have to have some pieces. Because I think Torch is the type of guy that he'll get you there quick. For sure. But you better come through. And Torch knows that too. He for himself even, he knows he's got to come through. I think he's a great coach, great guy, and I'm not surprised. And he would have that kind of conversation with Mitch that Mitch would respond well to, because he just respects Torts. For sure.
And speaking of coaches, Berube will probably stay another year with the Leafs. Do you think adding someone like McKenna could really change things? Or if the coaching and culture stay the same, does it really matter?
Again, it depends on what a Leaf is. What do you want? What's a Toronto Maple Leaf? And what do the Maple Leafs need to look like? And I think we've all seen what Chief can do. And he did it with St. Louis, obviously. I think what he'll do, if this goes well for him, he'll coach for another 8 or 10 years if he wants to. But he will definitely get guys ready to play in the National Hockey League for a long time. They will be pros for a long time. And I think this is where it gets a little goofy with me. And Alan knows this because we've talked about it a few times. I measure success, definitely you have to, by the scoreboard, no question about that. But I measure success by what it is you left behind in a player. And if they go on to bigger and better things, fantastic, had a little bit to do with that. If they go on to be great husbands and dads, better. If they go on to be great moms, sisters, partners, fantastic. Maybe that's why I lost jobs along the way, because all I wanted to do is make sure the human being was everything they could be. And I think Craig Berube will do that for the players in Toronto.
When you got to the National Hockey League, you were with the Canucks. You had McGillney and Berube and Bojic and Brashear and even Troy Crowder for a while to protect them. So how did you handle having two superstars? As I remember, it didn't work. It didn't work having them both on the same team. Like, I guess we needed Sergei Fedorov too, but how did you handle those superstars, those guys who are gazelles? They're just thoroughbreds. And how difficult was it to handle those guys?
This is when I do talks, I have no qualms talking about where I messed up, and I for me, Jerry, I had come from the national team and the Olympics and World Championships and things like that, where you had this, you had players that wanted to get where you could take them, or had been and just wanted to finish it up properly. These guys were already there. They were in the National Hockey League and great at it. And so I was, as I mentioned earlier, maybe a little bit the flavor of the week for a coach. And so I went to Vancouver, pretty sure of myself, very confident, had done some good things thanks to some great managers and great teams. And I thought I was doing really well. The first 6 weeks were great. And then I could sense that things weren't going that well. And I think where I dropped the ball, there was a bit of a division in our dressing room. And most have that, where you got to work at it to help it work. And I can tell you that I don't think I understood the NHL player like I needed to. I don't think I understood that, like the 75, 80-minute practice is a sort of a dinosaur look at the game. The drills, the practices were great. We did lots of great things. Comments were great. All that was just super. But then I forgot about, they needed time away from the rink. They needed time to go, be with their families. They needed to be able to have the freedom to be men, in this case, and not everything was, had to align with what was happening on the ice. And so I think what I did is I underestimated the needs of these players, beyond coaching, because I was into it and intense and driven, and we were gonna make this happen. And one of the best people that I've ever met, and Pat Quinn gave me a chance. And so I think I messed up. I don't know that I handled it very well. Those that understood me and understood my approach, that would sit and offer up a conversation were great. But guys like Pav, we talk tennis. Very seldom do we talk about hockey. For Elmo, we talk about why he didn't like flying, why he had to sit in the cockpit, and those types of things. And there certainly was a divide in that group. And then when Mess came along, you could see where Mess was really watching to see the ebb and flow of this dressing room and where it was going. And you could tell that, that Mark was not as effective as he needed to be either. And then that's when Mike came in, Mike Keenan. So I think I under-delivered. And I do believe, and I think it was three more years or whatever before they made the playoffs again under, maybe, would that have been Crow probably? I guess it would have been Mark Crawford. So I mean I don't think I delivered the way I should. And then of course with that knowledge, and that's what Craig's getting in Toronto now, Elena, is just, this is how it works here. With that knowledge, and subsequent to that, I ended up in New York, and we did pretty good. We did pretty good in New York, and I think I took those learnings and did everything I could to continue to just be myself and care, but understand these players the rink needed to be a destination, somewhere they wanted to get to, not something they had to go to.
I don't really like Berube's dump and chase system. So maybe you should come to coach the Leafs and save us.
There's lots of people that can save the Leafs, Elena, and you might even have the guy you need there right now. We'll give him a chance.
What do you think of the new management? There's been a lot of discussion around it. So what's your opinion?
Well, I'll start at the very top. I have lots of time for Keith Pelly. I think Keith's a great guy. I think he's a great man. I think he's an intellect. I think he's a visionary. I think he's got a lot of courage, and you need that in Toronto. I think he's got a plan, for sure. I do believe that, as I mentioned before, I from a GM's position, I just don't know Chaika well enough to comment on him. Matt's, I think, as a sort of a face of the Leafs, I think can work. And I think when it gets out to, to talk about the virtues of the Leafs and what they're planning on doing in this year and the years to come, I think he's the perfect guy to talk to that. I think he's the perfect guy to talk to young talent. He'll be very good, with McKenna. I think he'll really be helpful to him. So the jury's out, but the jury's always in Toronto.
Do you think the Leafs should keep Matthews or just rebuild completely around McKenna?
Yeah, McKenna's too young to take that load by himself. I can remember, Stan, I don't know if you remember this, but I didn't have a captain my first year in New York. And, and Jaromir was going to be our captain. But he said to me? He said, Tom, thanks. He says, I don't want that. No. He says, I just want to go play. I want to enjoy the Rangers. I want to enjoy the city. I don't need that on my jersey. I just want to go play hockey. And I said, no problem. So we went with 3 A's. And I think Auston Matthews is a great player. I really do. And I've witnessed that as a youngster from the age of 16 up to now. I think he's a great player. I know it's very, very hard to be a captain. And quite honestly, it's very hard to be an American captain in a Canadian city. And I think it's very hard to be an American captain in Toronto or Montreal. I really believe that. And I think that with that being said, I'd like to see them keep him. If they're going to do anything with him, they better get an awful lot for him because he's a great player. But what they need to do is fortify the leadership group, where he's a part of that for sure. But take as much of the load off of the leadership of him as they can without taking the C off his jersey. That's just my opinion.
Tom, we're talking about captaincy. I have a very important question for you. My 17-year-old granddaughter is the captain of a Culver team in Indiana. She's now in a USA hockey tournament in Dallas.
Yep.
She's 17 years old. She's very into the game. She has a Messier-type personality. What advice would you give my granddaughter moving ahead? She's 17. You've been coaching for your life. What do you tell Abigail Fischler?
I would tell her, number one, be herself. And you don't know it all, so don't pretend you do. But what she does know, because of the letter on her jersey already, is how to lead. And I think what she's got to do is make sure she talks to her teammates. She sounds like a freshman herself, Stan.
She, I believe she has the personality to go up, hopefully to colleges.
Yeah.
You tell her to do so-and-so. What I told her today? I told her a joke, which I'll tell at the end. I'll tell the joke at the end of the show.
I'm going to know an
That's
awful
what I
lot
did. I
about
told
your
her a
granddaughter.
joke. What am I going to tell? What the hell do I know? All I did was play roller hockey, and I scored 1 goal in my whole career.
You watched how many captains on the ice? How many captains did you watch on the ice lead their team?
The greatest captain of all, based on what I had seen, was Ted Kennedy of the Leafs, who succeeded Sillaps, and Teeter won the cup in 49 and 51. He was the greatest based on what I, and of course you have to say Messier and so on, and Denny Potvin. Chico Resch told me he was the greatest captain that he'd ever seen. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's exciting to see a grandchild play with the intensity that she has.
That's great. That's
not
great.
great.
I'm happy
because
to hear that.
Not great because when we would play games like our little tennis, she beat the crap out of me, and she didn't have any pity.
I have a quick captain story for you. I had a signed photo of Nick Lidstrom sitting on the boards like they did in the old days, Stan, when they take the pictures of guys that have one leg over the boards. Anyway, he had his 7 Norris trophies beside him and a photo. And a young friend of mine, a colleague who's had a young fella play in and he's going away to play hockey for the first time away from home. And I gave him the picture. And I said, you can look at all those trophies, and this is a great player. I said, the most important feature of this picture is the C on that man's jersey. Not those trophies, nothing. It's the C on his jersey. And now he's the captain in his college team right now. But so when you talk to your granddaughter, just tell her, be herself. She doesn't have to know it all. She just has to know how to treat people and be the best example she can in any way possible, as much off the ice as on the ice.
Wow, that's a great.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm sure she's got good DNA.
One Ranger follow-up for me, Tom. Just Glenn Sather, his leadership, his mentorship. What did that friendship? What did that mean to you in the New York years throughout?
Well, a lot. I'd had some experience with Glenn in the past. He tried to get me to go coach in, I don't know if it was Cape Breton Oilers. He tried to get me up there to come in as an associate coach. He finally talked me into my second go around through Hockey Canada to come and be director of player personnel. And I had a different trajectory and plan in mind. I think he did as well within the Rangers. And then all of a sudden I was on the bench with him. I can tell you that Glenn, I should say, was very, very good for Jim Dolan and the Rangers because of his experience. And he would be humble enough not to even want to talk about this. 5 Stanley Cups, Hall of Famer. And, all he'd do is sit down and chat with you, put his feet up on the desk, chew on his cigar, and tell stories of whatever you wanted. I would initiate those things, and he would story tell. And then we would get into talking about players. He was just not the persona that people, I think, see in Glenn. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. He can come across with an edge. He can come across in any way, people might think is sort of above it all. There's no chance. This man's got his feet on the ground, and he makes sure that the people around him do as well. And I have all kinds of time in the world for Glenn. I owe him a great deal.
Yeah, we miss him. I miss his presence around the Rangers.
Yeah,
he was great to see.
I don't think he ever smoked that cigar. I think he just chewed him.
Just the edge. Yeah, always that small bit.
My father thought cigars were to be chewed.
Did he?
Yeah. My mother didn't approve, but that didn't matter.
Well, that's okay. Mums are in charge. We all know that.
We always ask our guests, what's your prediction for the Stanley Cup? Who do you think is going to take it all this year?
I'm going to, my inclination is Colorado. But I'm going to say Carolina.
Why?
They're an amazing team this year.
They're they're a very good team throughout. Like, from top to bottom, they all play the game, with the same intention. They're all extremely disciplined. I think Rod Brindamore could coach a fire hydrant. To be honest with you. I just think he's that good. I just think he's got guys believing in everything he says and does because that's how he played. That's who he is. And I think they have a ton of respect for him. Not that any of the other teams don't for their coaches. I believe that to be true. I'd love to see. I'd love to see Torts win a cup. I know another one at least, just because I just think he kind of epitomizes coaching. He epitomizes, the need to stay with it, the need to grow people. Even when it's not fun, when it's hard. But
what about the Avalanche? What about the Avalanche?
I like them. That's everybody's. I said I'm going to go off page because I think that's what everybody's thinking. So I'm going to divert.
Well, Sabres are very good this year.
They are good. They really are. They are good too. And I have to be honest with you, Stan, Toronto was your favorite team. Montreal was my favorite team when I was 4 years old.
I got a great suggestion for you. Okay.
Okay.
After the playoffs are over, I want you to call up the owner or the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes and tell them to draft a fire hydrant.
Sixth round, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Let's see how much that statement is true.
Who was the team that drafted somebody that passed away?
No, that was Ottawa Rough Riders in the CFL.
Is that what that was, Jerry?
Yeah, they drafted a dead guy. The Flying Sabres. But
what was Al?
Yeah.
Sabres drafted a Japanese player that didn't exist.
That's right.
Way back when.
Those Sabres.
I don't care what anybody says, Tom. That is one of the greatest lines I've ever heard.
The fire hydrant.
It's one of the greatest lines. And it fits that Brindamore guy. It fits him.
Yeah, all good.
Well, just as the last statement here. Well, actually, I'll have two statements. Carolina, I've never been a big believer in Freddie Anderson as a starting number one goalie. I think he's falters. But this year I've been watching him, and his game, being a former goalie, his game is more compact and he's not moving as much. He's very, very level-headed, and he's not getting out of position at all. It's fun to watch. But Tom, I just wanted to say that your time in Vancouver, I thought you got a raw deal. I really did. I really liked you as a coach, and when they brought in Mike Keenan, I consider that to be the beginning of the dark ages for the Canucks, because it just was a boondoggle from that point. So,
well, thanks, really, Jerry. Very kind of you. I showed Mike where the light switch was.
Tom, I hope you can take criticism. There's a flaw. If you draft a fire hydrant, you always have to worry about a dog pissing on it.
Well, the saying there, Stan. Some days you're the hydrant, and some days you're the dog.
Yeah, my dog's sleeping and listening to the whole thing down here.
Fire hydrant.
Before we started the show, Alan told me that you are his favorite coach and Maeve's favorite coach for the last 25 years. So I guess Jerry's as well now.
I don't know how, but I do appreciate, more than anything else, it's just good people in your life. There's the gift.
I have one question. When I used to tell you the jokes, the PR guy, who was like a Gestapo officer, John Rosasco, would stand next to you with us, and he had a frown on his face like he would like to assassinate me. Did he ever say anything about the joke telling? Not anything that was derogatory, because I loved it so much. He saw that clean and simple. He wasn't going to kind of contradict our relationship and the fun we had. No way. He had no room to. Right.
John was good to me, boy. He gave me a little tug on the sleeve once in a while with some other people. Never you, Stan. He knew how important that was to us.
It's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tradition of ours that Maeve tells us a joke at the end of the show. Maybe you were going to tell us a colorful joke. Do you have it?
Don't point me in any direction, my dear. I don't know where the hell I'm going anyhow, so it ain't gonna help. So here's the gag. This is a crazy gag. A live duck walks into a bar, goes up to the bartender. Bartender looks at him. He says to the bartender, "Got any grapes?" Bartender says, "What are you, stupid? We sell wine, liquor. We don't have any grapes. Get out of here." Next day, the duck walks into the bar. He goes up to the bartender. He says, "You got any grapes?" Bartender says, "What did I tell you yesterday? We don't have grapes. We serve wine. We serve liquor, gins and tonic. Get out of here." Duck walks out. Next day, Duck walks into the bar. Bartender says, "Now what?" Duck says, "You got any grapes?" Bartender says, "You come in here one more time and you ask me for grapes, I'm going to get the biggest nail that I can find. I'm going to nail your feet into the wall, into the floor. Now get out of here." Next day, the Duck walks into the bar. Bartender looks at him. He says, "What now?" He says, "You got any nails?" He says, "This isn't a hardware store. No, we don't have any nails." He says, "Good. You got any grapes?"
Winner. That's a winner.
Why did I know that was where it was going? Oh my God.
Here's the dog for the fire hydrant. She's
Oh,
Right.
I saw it on. Is it a he or a she?
This is
She. I saw her in the pictures.
She's
Like,
sweet. Yes, she's a Catan de Tulier. She's the royal dog of Madagascar. Very fancy.
Nice.
Watches
Very
all
tolerant dog.
sweet dog. Yes. So she won.
Alan, if she could play, what position?
I think right wing. She scoring some goals from the start.
definitely not defense.
No.
I don't know. She looks pretty goonish to me. Oh,
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if he brings a prop like that to this program, he's got to listen to one more dog joke. So these two guys are walking down Sunday afternoon on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, very posh area, and each guy's got a dog. They're walking their dogs, and it's about 1 in the afternoon. One guy says to you, "Hey, Charlie, let's get something to eat. I'm hungry." He says, "We can't. We got the dogs here. They won't let us in a nice restaurant." He says, "They will if you watch what I do." He goes into the store, buys a cheap cane, and he buys a pair of cheap sunglasses, and he says, "Watch what I do." And he walks into this nice restaurant, and the maitre d' says, "No dogs allowed here. No dogs allowed." And he taps his cane, and he says, "Man, I'm blind. This is my seeing eye dog." The maitre d' says, "Since when is a Rottweiler a seeing eye dog?" He says, "No, they're tamed, very well behaved." The maitre d' takes him to a table, sits him down. 2 minutes later, his buddy walks in, also with a cane and his sunglasses. Maitre d' says, "No dogs allowed here." He says, "Well, I'm blind, man. This is my seeing eye dog." And Maitre d' says, "Since when is a dachshund a seeing eye dog?" And he taps the cane and he says, "You mean they sold me a dachshund?"
Jesus H. Jones.
Hey, Tom, you're my
David's on fire
inspiration.
today.
I gotta get out of here before I get dirty.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was wondering.
We'll have
You
to
like
edit. Yeah.
She liked the joke, so she's
yeah.
Yeah.
funny.
That's great.
Too positive.
Hey, thanks for the advice.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
be in touch. I'll be in touch, pal.
Take care, Stan. Love you.
Have you.
Okay.
It was
Great.
great. Thank you so much
Outstanding.
for joining us. And to everyone watching and listening, make sure you're following, subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you so much, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Stuff. Awesome.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.